And thank you for your heartfelt share. And what wants to come into the space right now to bring into presence is there's an interesting quality about regret. And regret is a slippery slope that you've already touched into here. But often what happens with regret is think about this for a moment. One may come to a choice, correct? And maybe a fork in the road, and one chooses to go down that road. And when one chooses to go down that road, however far down it, the regret comes in because one suddenly has made a decision that that other fork was going to bring you a different result than what you have here, correct? But you didn't walk down that road. But the assumption is, oh, if I had done it the other way, it would have turned out better, right? Or differently, or easier, or happier, or more loving, or whatever it is. But the reality is, it's all a story, isn't it? It's all in the land of make-believe, because what that other pathway was not existing. It did not exist when you never took it. So in one sense, the easiest way to let go of regret is look at the story that you've decided is true, that if you had gone that way, you think it was going to be different. But that story never even came to life because you didn't walk it. So the path you walk is the one that you enliven through your presence. So that means there never really was a choice point except the image of a choice point, because as soon as you move on to one, the other one ceases to exist. Does this make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So regret is a very interesting little beast because it's founded on the energy that, oh, I'm here. I'm not so happy with here, or it didn't look like I thought it was going to look like, or I thought it had a different promise in it when I made my way there. And I was at that point where I could have turned left and I could have turned right. But the story in your head about what that other one would have been, it doesn't exist. So where you've gotten yourself to into the conclusion of, maybe I am in the right place at the right time, because that didn't even exist, and anything I thought what is going to happen there never really existed anyway. So I'm just telling myself a story. So if I'm just telling myself a story, I might as well tell myself the story that's based on the path that I've been on, where, as you've said, you've connected with some things that have felt very positive and meaningful that makes sense from where you are. Because that other pathway, as soon as you took one step onto the pathway you were on, the other one evaporated. The choice dissolved. And the human mind doesn't think that. The human mind likes to think, oh, I regret that, because if I had done that, this would have been a different outcome. No, it wouldn't have been. Because it doesn't exist. So all you've done is told yourself a little fairy tale to say, oh, it would have turned out differently. No, it wouldn't. So as you've done, be here now. It's beautiful what you've done. To see what's lined up, to see who you've become. Because you can't walk backward and find that fork in the road anymore. It ceased to exist as an energetic option with your first step down the one road. There's a lot to celebrate. But when anyone finds themselves in an energy of regret, ask yourself what story you're creating about what you think would have happened in some other time that never actually even materialized. And acknowledge it as that. It's not really regret. It's just I'm pretending that something else would have happened. So then you can release the energy of the regret, because it's all just a pretend story anyway.
Thank you.
And I love the way Ishtara reframes things for us, helps us see the light, as one might say.
Correct, because there's another piece about regret that can be brought into this conversation. If one is at a choice point, one chooses to go a particular direction, and they get, just like has already been said, you get a particular distance down that road and you feel like, oh man, I took the wrong road because I thought this road was going to lead me somewhere other than what it was. If you were to walk back there, first of all, that doesn't even exist. But the energy of regret is leaving energy in a place that doesn't even exist. Does this make sense? Regret means I'm taking some of my energy and depositing it on that pathway that I thought was going to be better. And so I don't have all my energetic resource here because I've got some of it I've cast out some other place in some fantastical outcome that I'm imagining would happen, but actually never did. And I don't even know if I walked down that road, it would have even happened that way. So I'm putting a lot of energy into something that's irrelevant. So if I come back to my now and say, but if here is my now, and this is my only now, you can get very fun and esoteric about it. Say all time happens now. So this is the only reality. And it's actually true. So the way you can gather in your energy is by seeing what's right about where you are, who you've become because of where you are, acknowledging that you're in the right place at the right time to learn the right things. And this has been brought into presence this evening, correct? Because if you listen to the first story, one could resist an experience of feeling very depressed and say, oh, I should have done it a different way. But the glory of what was just heard was it was a catalyst to move to a brand new place. So if one can be accepting of where they are, open up to the possibility of where they are, who they're becoming because of where they are, then they gather the energy that they've thrown down metaphorically on a road of regret that doesn't even exist. So gather your energy back to you, for you right now. Be with you. And you can be with you by acknowledging you. You can be with you by breathing with yourself. You can be with you by seeing yourself. You can be with you by telling yourself that you're in the right place at the right time, even if it might not all make sense right now. Have you ever had an experience, and this is said to the group, where it's very difficult in the moment, but then it makes sense? It makes sense to who you've become. It makes sense to things that were unfolding that you didn't quite have a view of yet or an experience yet. But if you just hang in there a little bit more, or wait till a little bit more information comes in, a little bit more experience, and suddenly it all makes sense where you are. Has anyone had that experience? So allow yourself to be in the mystery of times that don't always make sense. Trusting that you're in the right place at the right time for the right reason gathers your energy up instead of throwing it out into other imagined scenarios. That if those were your scenarios to do, you'd either be there or create movement toward it. So if you're not being there, and if you're not creating movement toward it, let it go. Because they're imagined realities where you're in your experience right now. This is very convoluted conversation in a way relative to the way things happen in 3D. But you know us, we never have to stay in 3D, right? We're in training to multidimensionality, so we can have these conversations that bend thoughts and times and realities and open our brains up open the mind, expand the capacity within your thought processes so that you can handle multidimensional awareness. Your brain is capable of understanding multidimensional awareness as you entrain more to the multidimensional field. You all know that very little of the brain is brought online. So the rest of it isn't a paperweight, as people say. The rest of it isn't inert, as they say. But more of your brain needs to be brought online. So this is what we do when we have these wonderful conversations that sort of twist the mind a little bit, expand the boundaries, take you back, take you beyond what is commonly understood in this planetary dimension at this time. You didn't come here to do what everyone else is doing, for goodness sakes, did you? Of course you didn't. What everyone else is doing drives most of you nuts. Would you agree?
There's lots of nodding and smiles.
So since you've come to do something else, let's bend the mind, expand the awareness, expand the capacity of all that's within your skull. And this is the first time this has ever been mentioned. But as we have conversations, as you entrain with the unified field, as you engage with the universal sphere, you actually are bringing more of your brain capacity online. And we'll just leave that as a little nugget for tonight.